co-chairs for the Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee here in Woodbridge. This is Leslie Lyons. She's another committee member. And then we do have I think 3 committee members who are upstairs actually running a kids program for if anyone brought kids. So if you've seen the kids running around that look like they want to learn about energy stuff today, we'll send them upstairs. So, and hopefully a few more will be coming. We wanted to, I'm wondering, did everybody fill out the survey that we did earlier in the fall? Does that sound familiar to anyone? Oh no. All right, well I know Leslie did. So, we wanted to give back the results of the survey today before we actually get into the main meat of the discussion, which is going to be about heat pumps. We have Matt here from Energize CT. He's one of the heat pump support team.
Yeah, I'm a heat pump specialist with the heat pump support team.
All right, there we go. So welcome and thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it. And so I just want to give like I said, a quick overview of how our survey went. We polled all adults in Woodbridge. Apparently not you. So
we just don't necessarily recall that.
Maybe you don't remember. Maybe this will, refresh your memory. So so we had 164 people respond. We did it at the beginning of October. It was open to all adults in town. And so we were sort of surveying on what were you interested in sustainable actions. So, and did you feel this was even a problem in the first place that needed to be addressed? So about 88% of people were interested in making more sustainable changes in their lives. The main interests were in improving town building energy use, improving private home energy use, increasing recycling, reducing food waste, starting electric vehicles, rideshare programs, improving water conservation in private homes, and having educational opportunities like this so that we all can share what we know and spread information to everybody. So in terms of energy reduction, people were interested in solar energy, heat pumps, like today, geothermal energy, which I think will be, Matt, you touched on that briefly, correct? A little bit.
Yeah, I'll talk about chicken.
Geothermal as well. And then also some water conservation with rain barrels and changing to energy efficiency appliances too. We want to do that a lot in our private homes so we all can save money and energy. We also want to work on improving local food systems by buying local. A lot of people were very interested in what food sources are available within Woodbridge in terms of the town farms, in terms of the local markets, being able to buy local, and then also what can we do to decrease waste in that regard in terms of composting in our backyard or having a commercial composting option. People were interested in electric vehicles as well as biking or walking options. We all know there's not a lot of sidewalks in Woodbridge, so that is something that we want to spread the word about the ones that there are available currently and then what walking options there are too. And then on April 27th of this year is going to be our big Earth Day event, so we were also asking what were people interested in seeing there. We're planning a few different things, but we of course want to give you what you want. So people were interested in having seed swaps, and having a clothing free cycle, which is what we've done the last couple of years, and doing electronics recycling, mattress recycling, maybe a tag sale like we've had in the past, and seeing food trucks and live entertainment, making it a big sort of festival. So that is what we are hoping to do. So make sure you mark your calendars. The third Saturday of every month, we're doing lectures like this of the different topics that people are interested in. January is either going to be recycling or water conservation. We're still deciding for sure. And then February is going to be composting, learning how to backyard compost. So we've got some great ones coming up. And then of course, definitely mark your calendars for April 27th, which is a Saturday. And that's going to be our big Earth Day celebration. So we hope to see everybody. And then I will turn it over here. Oh, and we have one more volunteer here is Laura, another member of our committee.
I'm very interested.
Oh, I don't know. Thanks. Alrighty. Hey everybody.
Hi.
Hey, my name is Matt. So as I said earlier, I'm a heat pump specialist with Energize Connecticut, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. But I live in Naugatuck, and I grew up there, so I'm not too far away from y'all. Is everyone? I like to do a quick survey at the beginning. Is everyone here from Woodbridge? Probably, right? Or most people, everybody? Is everyone's UI customers then?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we'll talk about heat pumps, but I'm curious what y'all are using to heat your house right now. So who's got heating oil? Raise your hand. Okay, mostly heating oil. Anyone have natural gas here?
For the fire, well, propane for the fireplace.
Oh yeah, propane. Anyone else on propane? Okay, so you've got both fuels for the fireplace. Yeah. Okay,
I
cool.
have electric. My house is one of the few houses built with electric, but I never use the electric.
Does anyone else have electric heat? Like electric baseboards or electric furnace? Not super common over here. Okay. Cool, so mostly heating oil. We'll talk about all of that. And one more question. Welcome. Who's got ductwork for distributing your heating or cooling in your home? For heating or cooling, and who's got baseboards hitting for heating, hydronic heating? That's cool. Okay, so we got a great mix. Thank you guys for participating. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Energize Kinetic. I'll get to that in a second. Talk about heat pumps, why anyone would want to consider a heat pump, and some of the resources we have to help you make a good choice for a heat pump or anything else. So Energize Connecticut. What's your name?
Eric,
Eric and I were talking about this earlier.
what do you think?
So Energize Connecticut is you all as UI utility customers pay into, it's called the Energy Efficiency Fund. It's a small portion of your delivery fee, and that goes to fund Energize Connecticut. So we have a bunch of programs, educational, we have financial resources, there's financing options, rebates, all with the goal of helping you make smart energy choices and improve the energy efficiency of your home for not only your electric, reduce your usage, but also reduce strain on the grid. So we all save costs that way. Reduce carbon emissions, so tons of benefits for energy efficiency, and really the whole goal of Energize Connecticut is to help improve that across the state. So, and also just want to mention that myself, we don't sell or install any equipment. We don't make money off of, I don't make money off what you guys choose to do, if you install a heat pump or not. It's part of what I like about my job, is I don't like having to sell anything. But I do think heat pumps are awesome, and we'll talk about that also. All right. So I'm assuming everyone's heard of a heat pump before, right? Nobody has a heat pump? Does anyone have a heat pump here?
Yeah, we just installed,
Is it like
Yes.
is it the wall on?
it's well, clearly, yeah, yes.
Okay, cool.
For just two rooms in our house.
Okay,
So we installed a small one
Mhm.
for 2 rooms in our house, thinking mainly using it as air conditioners.
Nice.
But we've been using it as heater in the bedroom, which has been really nice too.
Cool. All right, we'll talk about partial solutions. You can do a heat pump. There's tons of applications for a heat pump. So there's a lot of versatility in the design of the system. So we'll get into that. So what is it? It's basically same thing as it's doing the same thing as a fridge or as an air conditioner. It's moving heat using refrigerant. So just like an air conditioner moves heat out of your home in the summer, a heat pump can absorb heat in one place and release heat in the other place. It's using refrigerant to do that. So it forces the refrigerant to change phase from gas to a liquid. It absorbs a bunch of heat. When it goes from liquid to gas, it absorbs a bunch of heat, and then the compressor forces the liquid to change back from gas to a liquid. If you think back to chemistry class in high school, when you boil water, steam is way hotter than water because it took a lot of energy to become the steam. It's the same thing for refrigerant, it's just they're able to manipulate it in such a way that it does it exactly when they want it to. So it absorbs a ton of heat outside and moves it inside. And there are heat pumps that can heat into very cold temperatures now. So the performance of heat pumps in cold temperatures has improved very dramatically over the last 5-10 years. That's why they're a lot more common here. and they do heating and cooling. So it's an all-electric heating and cooling system. These air conditioners and refrigerators are just moving heat in one direction. Heat pump can move heat in both directions. So there's multiple types of heat pumps. A ground source heat pump is one type. It's the same thing as geothermal heating and cooling. You guys heard of geothermal? It's using the ground like a thermal battery. So there's thermal energy in the ground. The sun beams heat up the earth every day, and that energy is stored in the earth, in the soil and rocks and all that. The geothermal system relies on that to basically, like a thermal battery, draw thermal energy when you need it inside and deposit thermal energy when you don't want it in your home when it's cooling. So they're very efficient because the ground is a stable temperature all year round. It's about 50 degrees, 45, 50 degrees when you go down a few feet all year round. So in the dead of winter, heat pumps are very efficient, or ground source heat pumps are very efficient because the ground is a much warmer temperature than the air outside. So there's a few different types of ground loops. So there's vertical wells here, so drilled down several hundred feet underground, and the horizontal loop field. So not to scale, by the way, this is like way bigger probably than you'd need for horizontal, but anyway, they do like trench work in a yard and install it that way, usually like 6 to 8 feet down. So the type of land you have, the type of soil, accessibility to that land, you know, how graded is the landscape will determine like which one of these is more appropriate for your home. So you should just have a company come and take a look essentially. In a consultation, so we'll talk about this in a bit, we do one-on-one consultations. My team does one-on-one consultations with anybody about heat pumps, if they make sense for you. We'll talk through all the specifics in your home. So I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you have home-specific questions, we'll take questions at the end, but save your home-specific questions for a consultation, because I just want to give you all like the time you deserve for your home, and we don't have time to talk about everybody's home tonight. But we will take questions later, and I would encourage you to schedule a consultation. I'll show you how to do that later on. But anyway, these would be like sized for how much heating or cooling your building needed. So that's like the size of the ground loop is determined by, you know, how much heating you need. The other type of heat pump is an air source heat pump. So these systems use thermal energy from the air outside instead of the ground. And even when it's very cold out, say 5 degrees, there's still thermal energy in the air. You know, it's not absolute zero, there's still thermal energy there. And the air source heat pump can still extract enough heat from outside to heat your home all year round. Even in our climate, there are heat pumps that are rated down to negative 30 degrees. And in much colder climates than ours can be sized and designed to heat a home all year round with no backup, although it's common to install a backup or have a dual fuel system, which we'll talk about. You can keep your existing system as a backup as well in some cases. So, you know, so heating and cooling using the air outside, pretty cool. And this is that cold climate performance is what has improved so much in the last 5 or 10 years, like I mentioned, and that's why heat pumps are gaining a lot of popularity here in New England. They've been really common in warmer climates for a long time. If you go down south, like the Carolinas or Georgia, or wherever, where they get, you know, it's mostly a cooling climate, heat pumps are much more prevalent there. So the cold climate performance is why they're much more popular here, and now they're cost competitive, so we'll look at that in a few minutes. As far as I mentioned earlier, I asked about ductwork. If you have ductwork in your home, there are ducted heat pumps that can connect to that ductwork. You know, a good contractor should evaluate if a heat pump is compatible with your ductwork, because ductwork that was designed for cooling or designed for a different type of heating system. Most of the time it's compatible, but there's considerations you should take into account. So evaluating the ductwork is important, but most of the time you can use your existing ductwork with a heat pump. If you don't have ductwork, there are ductless systems. These don't use any ductwork. There's wall-hung units right here, which we'll look at. This is a single zone unit, so this is one outdoor unit with one indoor unit. You'll notice both of these are pretty much the same components, right? You've got an outdoor unit connected to one, or sometimes you can have multiple indoor units with a refrigerant line. So it's the same thing, it's just about how the heat's distributed inside. There's multiple types of these ductless units. So these are wall-hung, they're really common. There's also floor-mounted units and ceiling cassettes. So, some people, don't like the aesthetic impact of the wall-hung units. I think these other two are a lot more discreet. And these sort of look like an old, like the big steel radiators. I think they fit in with a lot more home designs, in my view. I just want to say these are all basically the same thing. They're just about other. There's also, so as far as ducted systems, there's also compact ducted units. So if you don't have, if you have if your home's centrally ducted, you can use that most of the time. There's also compact ducted units. So these are great for if you don't have ductwork already and you have an unfinished attic or basement space, you could duct part of the home instead of the whole home and go with a combination of ducted and ductless. So you can have a multi-zone heat pump system that has, this is like a ducted air handler and connected to a ductless unit as well. So you can have multiple indoor units that can be a combination of ducted and ductless. And so because of that, these systems are very, very versatile, for the the type of space you have now, the layout, if it's an open floor plan versus closed floor plan. You can design the system to, really for almost any home, whether you have ductwork or not. So there's a lot of versatility, like I mentioned. My goal here is not to have you go design your own system later tonight, unless you're really into that, you want to get dirty about it. But you would just want to have a contractor. My goal here is to give you enough information to ask good questions for a contractor, to have bounce ideas off about placement of things. Can we do ducted here? If you don't, and what I'll mention is that these ductless units are really best for, they work anywhere at home, but they really work best in more open spaces where one of these can do a pretty large space on its own. They can throw air in multiple directions, so they can mix air around in the room. Like for example, this ceiling cassette unit has, you'll notice, has like 4 vents on all 4 sides of it, so we can throw air in 4 directions, and you can place it like centrally in a room and can do a pretty good job of keeping it going pretty big space. Whereas a compact ducted unit is really great for where you have more closed-off segmented rooms, like bedrooms, for example, where you can just have one of those in an attic, heating and cooling multiple bedrooms rather than putting 3 ductless heads in 3 bedrooms. So there's advantages, pros and cons to either ducted or ductless if you don't already have the ductwork. And the systems are really versatile. So, and again, we talk about this more specifically with your home in a consultation, but just want to give you the information to think through. So, why would someone want to think about a heat pump? So you can heat and cool with 1 unit. It's pretty cool. You have to replace 1 thing every 20 years instead of having 2 things, sometimes in different cycles, kind of annoying. Lower cost for heating and cooling, so we'll look at this in more detail, but a lot of you are heating with oil. We'll look at how that compares to heat pumps. Heat pumps are cheaper than oil, as well as propane. We'll dig in that in a second. And reduce carbon emissions. We'll also look at some data on this. So this graph is a, can everyone see this okay? I just want to make sure. So the numbers, like, all right. So what's going on here, we've got a temperature scale here along the bottom, and then you've got this gray area, this jagged gray shape in the back, and that's showing us how many hours we get in our heating season, average heating season here in Connecticut. It's the last 10 years of weather data, so these number of hours over here on the left, that shows, we get actually the bulk of our heating hours are in like the 30 to 60 range. So, we get between the shoulder seasons, we get a lot of hours where we do need heating, but it's not our most extreme hours of the year. We do get some really cold temperatures down in the single digits here. It's for Hartford weather data, so it's actually a little bit warmer down here in Woodbridge, but the bulk of our heating hours are when it's warm around, is the point here. And these lines are showing us the cost of creating 1 million BTUs, so it's an amount of heat. The cost of creating the same amount of heat with different heating fuels. So oil is this black dotted line right here. Costs right around $36 when you look at the last 2 years of energy cost averaged to create that same amount of heat with oil. Propane is a little bit more, it's about like $45. Electric resistance heat, that's like electric baseboard heating, old electric heat. It's really, really expensive to create that same amount of heat with old electricity, but heat pumps, they're using electricity, but because they're moving heat, they're way more efficient than the old type of electric heat. So these green lines are 3 different heat pumps on here, and you can see that what's different about heat pumps is that they have to work harder to heat your home when it gets colder. So when there's less heat in the air outside, like when it's colder out, there's less thermal energy, so the heat pump has to use more electricity to keep your home warm. It's working harder to move that heat in and keep the home warm. So that cost to create that same amount of heat goes up as it gets colder. And there is a point for oil users where it's a little bit cheaper to use oil at the coldest times of the year. And I want to point out that it's relatively few of the hours of the year, so even heat pump 1 on here, which is the least efficient of these 3, would cross over with that cost comparison with oil at 26 degrees. That's still 86% of the heating hours, so it's still more efficient for the vast majority of the year. Whereas heat pump 3, which is the most efficient, is more efficient than oil for 98% of the year. So one of the takeaways here is that the efficiency of the unit matters a lot when you're switching from oil if you're expecting a lot of savings. So air source heat pump 1 isn't that much more efficient than oil. You might save like 5 or 10%. Whereas air source heat pump 3 is like 35% cheaper than oil when you look at the same system. So
we should be asking for heat pump 3 when we install?
I would say that there's some metrics to pay attention to when you're talking to contractors about heat pumps evaluating options. So there's performance numbers, and most people are familiar with the SEER rating of equipment. That's the cooling performance of a heat pump or an air conditioner. It's the same number, higher is better. So SEER rating is the cooling performance, and then the equivalent number for heating is called HSPF. So both of those numbers are pretty available to consumers. So a higher HSPF is a better number, a more efficient system for heating. It's like an average of the performance across the year. So there's that. There's those 2 things, and then some units will lose. So some units are not built for cold climates, whereas others are. So I mentioned earlier that heat pumps, the performance is increased a lot. Is a lot better at cold climates now. Not all systems are designed for cold climates, so there's going to be some units that are way better down, especially on this end, than other ones. So if you're looking for the system to do all of your heating and cooling, you can do that, but you want to find a unit that performs well at cold temperatures, whereas some are going to look really good on this side, but then they're not really designed for performing down in 5 or even colder temperatures, and so you need another heating system down at those cold temperatures. So I guess there's 2 things to pay attention to: the efficiency, but also the cold climate performance.
Question.
Sure.
It's my understanding that heat pumps are more efficient at cooling than they are at heating, so the amount of energy required to cool a home would agree is less than the amount of energy needed to heat a home would agree.
Yeah.
And as a function of that, there are heat pumps that use actually built-in resistive heat coils to facilitate the heating. Is that something that is quite common? And in these data, are we looking at just the heat pump itself working, or does this include the resistive heat component as well?
Great question. So 2 things there. You're absolutely correct that your home needs less cooling than it does heating, because if you think about it, when you want your home to be 70 degrees, it's like the number, approximately, everyone's a little bit different, but about 70 degrees. When it's 90 out, there's a 20-degree difference between indoor and outdoor temperature, so there's only 20 degrees you're gonna get, move the heat from outside, and it's a smaller delta than in winter when it could be 10 degrees out, and you have a 60-degree difference between the indoor and outdoor temperatures. So the heat pumps have to work harder when there's a bigger difference between inside and outside. Your home needs more heating, and you have the same amount of leakage in the home. And we'll talk a little bit about efficiency in a bit. But the second part of that is that some ducted heat pumps are often built with an electric resistance backup heating system, backup portion of the system. That is built into this data. It's going to be so there are heat pumps that were installed 10 to 15 to 20 years ago that relied on those backup heaters quite a bit because their cold climate performance wasn't as good as it is today. systems today really have those as a backup. So like if, if it's a very, so they should, good contractor should design a heat pump to do 99% of your heating hours. And then that last 1% of hours that some years we might not even get, right? Are going to be where you're going to rely on that electric resistance heat in general, right? Because on those, it's a small percentage, it's not going to affect it much. And if you design for 100% of the hours with the heat pump, you're oversizing the heat pump for the vast majority of the year. So that's where that electric resistance comes in. Is mostly just as a backup today, whereas in the past it was more of a, it relied on it pretty heavily. So I guess, but there are still heat pumps you can get that are going to rely on that electric resistance backup quite a bit. So that's what I'm talking about. If you're looking at cold climate performance, you want a heat pump that can do all your heating all year round, if that's your goal. Dual fuel is also an option, right? So, if you had oil as a backup, you can decide to use oil under 26 and minimize your costs if that was your goal. Or if you were like, wanted to completely get rid of oil and you're tired of calling the oil guy, or it's showing up when you don't expect it and then you get this bill, which happens to us sometimes.
Yeah.
You can eliminate oil as well. So, options.
So-
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So I had somebody come and tell me that to keep my furnace as backup for oil, and then they would put the heat pump on the top.
Mhm.
So is that a thing, or should I just get rid of the furnace and just go all heat pump?
So that's a question that's specific. So I would say let's schedule a consultation. We can dig in more detail. But in general, what you're talking about is called a case coil. So there are ducted systems. There's what's called an air handler, and that's this like big metal box, and it's got a fan in it, and it handles the air. It blows the air around through the ductwork. A furnace will have the furnace burner inside, and that adds the heat, and that the fan blows over the burner, and it blows the heat around the home. A heat pump has a coil outside and a coil inside. A cased coil can sit on top of an existing furnace air handler and add heat or add cooling just like a central air does. So central air right now is a cased coil that sits on top of the furnace. Heat pump can do the same thing. That's a great option if you have the ductwork and you have not a very old furnace that you think is going to last like 20, 30 years or longer, whatever. If your old furnace is also very old, it might make sense to replace, either go with new dual fuel, or you could, heat pumps, there are some heat pumps that have their own full air handler. So there's drawbacks to the cased coil because the highest performing heat pumps have a variable speed fan, whereas the cased coils, because they're relying on the fan from the furnace, sometimes are not variable speed. So you lose a little bit of the, heat pumps will speed up and slow down, so they modulate, they get faster when you need more heat and slower when you need less heat. Because you're losing the variable speed fan, you lose a little bit of that modulation capacity, and so they're not quite as efficient, the cased coils in general. It's generality, we're speaking generalities here, because there's some really efficient cased coils and there's some not very efficient full air handlers as well. So they're both good. I mean, if you have a new, and this is like where I would talk to somebody, right? Based on the age or lifespan of your existing equipment, different things might make sense for different households. So I would say let's schedule a consultation, but that's what I would say to most folks. Yeah. Cool. And I want to get through the slides, and I don't want to keep you all here tonight, so we'll save questions for the end, and then we could always. I'm happy to stay after we talk. Sorry, no more questions. For now. So this is the same type of data, but for CO2 emissions. So it looks very similar, right? But you can see that whereas these, as far as like cost-wise, they were a lot closer. Heat pumps far and away are way less carbon intensive than these other fuels. So oil is up here with some of the highest carbon intensity and this is for the same amount of energy, right? So this is standardized by that same million BTUs. So to create the same amount of energy, this is the carbon emissions associated with that. This is pounds of CO2, so you're looking at, for oil, close to 200 pounds of CO2 for that same amount of heat. Heat pumps are not burning anything on site, which is great, although the electricity has to come from somewhere, and here in New England it comes mostly from natural gas, so about 70% of the New England grid mix comes from natural gas power plants. So even when you account for the generation of the electricity, heat pumps are still a lot more efficient because they're so efficient at moving heat on site. So it's a very effective use of that electricity. So the long-term goal, if you're looking at a carbon-free future, is electrify homes, electrify everything, and slowly green the grid. So it's much easier in the future to switch over a few power plants, or more than a few power plants, a lot of power plants, than like millions and millions of homes. So this is part of a strategy. You know, it's great about climate change. It's such a wide, sweeping problem. So this is, heat pumps are a small part of that, I should say. Okay, so efficiency first. We were talking a little bit earlier about the Home Energy Solutions program with Energize Connecticut. So highly recommended at any point for any home, but especially before looking at a new heating system, is to take a look at how well insulated and how well sealed your home is. Because the energy performance of your home matters a lot for the sizing of the new equipment. So you can save money because any heating system won't have to work as hard, but also when you're sizing new equipment, if you're able to reduce how much heating or cooling your building needs, you can size that heat pump or whatever else you're gonna get smaller, potentially, and save money that way too. So there's tons of advantages, highly recommended. The Home Energy Solutions program, I'll talk about, I have a slide about it in a little bit, but it's a great idea, and I think Hillary can speak a little bit to your experience if anyone wants to know what it's
I
actually
just
like.
had it done, it's amazing. I had my oil at 3/4, and they came and they winterized the windows and everything. And I've only used since November, quarter of a tank.
Woo,
So
nice, it's cool
Yeah.
that you can like notice the, actually see the,
actually noticed
yeah,
the difference.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But so one thing I want to emphasize to think about if you're thinking about a heat pump is what your goals and motivations are. Like, is your most important thing cost savings? Are you looking at increased comfort, lowering your carbon emissions? All these can be achieved with a heat pump. But like we looked at earlier, like playing a role in like keeping your old heating system or not, right? Like that plays a role in terms of like, do you want to minimize your costs by using, if you have natural gas, it's cheaper to use natural gas most of the year than a heat pump. I don't know, I didn't point that out, but that's the case. So, all these are important, but they might be different priorities for people. Okay, so we talked a lot about this at this point, so I'm not going to dig in too much here, but you can keep your old heating system with a heat pump. You can integrate it with a thermostat, a dual fuel thermostat that can connect to both the heat pump and the oil or gas, whatever you have, and do that switch over automatically, or you can set it up to just prioritize the heat pump, and then only when, if the heat pump were working as hard as it could and it couldn't keep your home warm, say if you had a very extreme like 0 degree or negative, that's where that like electric resistance could come on purely as a backup. So it's called the Drew method, just calling for that backup only when it's absolutely needed. So depending on what your backup is and what your goals are, you can set that up differently. So we talked a little bit about some example designs. We looked at like ductless and ducted earlier, so I'm going to give you an example of where it might make sense to go with a combination system, and how you might be able to think about your home. So zoning with heat pumps is cool. The ductless units are all their own zone. So if you have a ductless system or a compact ducted unit, you can have slightly different temperature zones, like just how you'd have like zones with baseboards. Sometimes homes are zoned upstairs and downstairs, or like some homes have more than 2 zones. But with a heat pump, you can do that as well, which is really cool. So we'll look at this example floor plan here. It's a 1,500 square foot floor plan, kind of like a like a raised ranch style. Got 2 bedrooms over here, and then down on this left side of the home, you've got more of an open kitchen, living room, dining room area. So it says undersized over here. It's undersized for the whole floor, right? Like this ductless head. This is not to scale. This is like much bigger than it would look actually, right? But this might not be able to do the entire floor, especially like down the hallway. If you've got these bedrooms and the doors are closed, it's not going to heat the whole floor. But this could be a really great comfort solution for this side of the home. So you could do your whole home with a heat pump, but you could just do a partial solution as well. Like you said earlier, you just installed it for part of your home because maybe, I don't know, maybe it was uncomfortable there, or maybe you had electric baseboard in that part of the home and you wanted to offset your most expensive part of your heating system. So there's different reasons to go with partial solutions as well. This is really great for, if you hang out in the living room and it's always drafty. This is a great, insulate and air seal too. But this could be a great solution too for that. So this would be like, we tend to recommend staying away from solutions like this. Sometimes this is the only way to do things, to put ductless in the whole home and do every room. You can do it that way. Sometimes you run into issues where these single zone it's a multi-zone, but these ductless heads can be oversized for small bedrooms. So not always the case, sometimes it's totally fine, but oversizing a system, the whole system, but also the individual zones will lead to lower performance in general. So oversizing, if someone says, oh, we're going to oversize it, it's better for you, it actually reduces the performance of the system. So you don't want to oversize the heat pump. And that's why also it makes sense to do the insulation and air sealing before installing a new heat pump, because you could install one and then make your home way more efficient, and all of a sudden the heat pump's oversized for the new, at the home after those improvements. So oversizing in general is not a good idea, and this is like a great place. This design, if you had an unfinished attic or basement, would be a great place to do a combination of these, where you can have one ductless head kind of placed strategically. So if it's throwing air in this direction, it could, disperse air enough into the dining room and kitchen over there. And also have, this is a compact ducted unit, sometimes called pancake units. They're about yay big. You can sit in the attic and have like some small runs of ductwork to these bedrooms, or you can even run another duct to the bathroom as well. So this would be great to hide some of the system in the attic, and use the ductless where it makes the most sense in this open space. And this would probably cost less than doing more ductless heads as well. So. We haven't talked much about heat pump water heaters, but want to point out that they exist. They're pretty cool. They use the air around them to heat your water. So if you put them in your basement, they're going to cool the basement actually, because they're moving thermal energy from the basement air into the water. They're also going to dehumidify the basement. They produce just as much hot water as any other hot water heating system. They're often hybrid, so they use the heat pump most of the time to heat the hot water, and then if you needed a lot of hot water at once, it uses electric resistance to heat that up. So you've got the flexibility of the really efficient use when it's just like maintaining the temperature in the tank, and then you still have enough juice to get you a lot of hot water if multiple people take showers in a row or something like that.
Is their longevity a lot better than regular hot water heaters that die every 5 or 6 years or whatever you guys have experienced?
I'm actually, so like the expected life is between 8 to 12 years for different equipment, so as far as beyond the manufacturer's recommendations, I think they're fairly similar, yeah. So owner maintenance stuff, I actually usually skip these slides, and I'm going to right now. I'll just mention it. So anything, you should clean the air filters. Definitely keep the outdoor use. So as far as maintenance, it's not much different, from any other heating system you have. Clean the filters. Ductless units have a filter. You pop the thing open, you clean it with a paper towel. It takes 5 minutes. You should do it every couple months. And then have it serviced regularly. So any equipment, it's expensive piece of equipment, right? And you want to make sure it's going to live its full lifespan. 20-ish plus years is what you should expect. And so having it serviced regularly, really what they should do is just clean the coils and make sure there's no refrigerant leakages, which is uncommon and will mostly are a result of poor install or faulty equipment, and you should figure it out pretty soon anyway. But that's what they should be doing for service. General service about $150 to $300 a year. But that's typical compared to other equipment as well. Resources, so Home Energy Solutions, I mentioned this earlier. They'll do a whole analysis of the home's energy performance. They'll do some sealing and replace light. I don't think they do light bulbs anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, they switch on those. Sorry. But they'll do air sealing. They'll do a whole analysis, you'll get a report after, and then they might make recommendations for larger improvements like insulation work, and you can get rebates toward what they recommend as well. So all around, it's a great program. It's a $50 copay, but usually it's about a $1,000 value for the home. So totally recommended. We have rebates for heat pumps. So for residential heat pumps, is anyone interested in a commercial building tonight? No? All right, cool. For residential, $7.50 per ton. So the tonnage is the capacity of the heat pump. Most homes will need between 2 and 5 tons. That's really typical. It's a measure of how many BTUs it puts out essentially. So $7.50 per ton for an air source heat pump, and for a ground source heat pump we have $1,500 per ton. Ground source heat pumps cost quite a bit more in general, so that's why the rebate's bigger, and they're more efficient. So we find, between this and the federal tax, I'll say this, the federal tax credit. There's a federal tax credit for air source heat pumps. It's 30% of the project cost, but it's capped at $2,000. So for most whole home projects, you're gonna get the full $2,000. But some spark, if you do one single zone head, it might just not reach the caps and just be $30,000. So, or I'm sorry, 30%. So between these two things, between the rebate from Energize Connecticut, by the way, sorry, it's a mail-in rebate. So $7.50 per ton. So say if you had a 4-ton system, which is common for a lot of homes, you would be eligible for a $3,000 incentive from Energize Connecticut and up to a $2,000 tax credit. So around $5,000 for just a hypothetical 4-ton system. And
Is the Energize CT rebate dependent on the home energy, the audit, or not?
no, you don't know. It's highly recommended, like I said, to do an audit first and always prioritize energy efficiency, but is not required for anything. Although there is a bonus rebate if you do the audit and they say, hey, so say you do an audit and they're like, you should insulate your attic. If you insulate the attic, then you get rebates for it. But then you also get a bonus $500 rebate to the heat pump. So a little bit of an extra incentive to do the energy efficiency first, if it's necessary for the home. So between
So we
these,
have time to do the work to 2032?
this is available until 2032. So the tax credit's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I thought we had to do it by March.
No.
No? Okay. Because that's, to do all the investigations and studies and to make sure you're doing the right thing, it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
So, March is too quick.
No, you got plenty of time. You got plenty of time. So this isn't going anywhere for 10 years. This program gets renewed every year, and sometimes it changes from year to year. So this is the program values for 2024. And so if you were to wait till 2025, this might change. But the tax credits, nothing should change about that anytime soon.
How did the Connecticut numbers do relative to 2023? About the same or increase, decrease?
They went down 25%.
No, down 25%.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because there was way higher participation than they expected.
Okay.
And so to serve as many customers as they're seeing demand for, they had to lower that incentive. So the only way to increase more money, like we talked about earlier, is to increase your public benefit charge on your utility bill, and that there's also they're regulated on that, and they have to fight for those types of increases. So anyway, it did go down, but for it's good and bad, okay, and if you go here, this is also on that page, you can find eligible products for these things. So there's efficiency requirements for both the Energize Connecticut incentive and for this tax credit. So if it's tax credit eligible, 99% chance is also on our list. So if you go here and you can search, it's fairly user-friendly. You can search by brand, size of equipment, anything on there. And there's also plenty of other places to find equipment as well. Or you just talk to a contractor. What I'll say is that most contractors install 2, maybe 3 brands of equipment. So if you're partial to a specific brand of equipment, it might make sense to go to that brand's website and you can find their local dealers and find a contractor that can install that brand of equipment and knows it the best. Some of those big heat pump manufacturers have their own lists of preferred installers who get better deals, better warranties, who do more training so they know the equipment better. So you know, as far as we'll talk about our qualified products list or our qualified contractor list in a second, but this is a great way to find equipment, and that's another strategy to find good contractors as well. We've got some financing products to Energize Connecticut. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over this a little bit, but there's a low interest loan option as low as 0.99%. Not everyone's going to be eligible for that. It's based on your heating fuel right now. Smart E-loan, this is available to anybody, so it's like a regular loan for heat pumps, or for anything energy related. And then we've also got this micro loan that can be used for any of that insulation work that's recommended, but also for a heat pump. 0% loan, only up to $3,000. Mostly, it's best for insulation because the projects are going to fall in that range there. Most projects. So I would love for anyone here who wants to talk more, again, going to keep your home-specific questions, save it for a consultation, and you can scan this link. I've also got, I forgot to put it out, but I've got a sign in the back with it, so if you want to scan on your phone after. Or if you want to hang out, I can set up my computer and you can schedule it right on my laptop. So totally free. You know, again, we don't make any money off what folks choose to do. The goal is to help you understand what might be a good solution for your home or give you some direction, and then you know, we do quote comparisons. So, you know, probably done a lot of education, so you don't need to sit through that again, but if you do get quotes for heat pumps, we can compare the performance of different models. We can make sure it aligns with your goals. We talked about cold climate performance and efficiency. We can run an analysis that determines is this how well it performs in cold temperatures compared to the other units you're getting recommended, how often you might need to rely on the backup heat, and how it compares to the cost of your existing system. So if you have like your oil usage data, we can plug that in. We can plug in the data from the performance of the equipment, and our local weather and specifics about your home. So we've got some software we use, and really just talking through like what your goals are, helping you get this kind of straight. So totally would love for anyone here to schedule that. I do those as well as my colleague Luke, who's awesome as well. Qualified contractors. So we talked earlier, mentioned some strategies to help find contractors. This is going through some of the manufacturers. So if you're interested in certain brands, that's a great way to do that. We've also got a qualified contractor list. They have to be on our list to use the rebate, so that's important. But really, you know, all we do to make sure to get them on there is make sure that they're insured, licensed, and trained, which are, of course, important things. But we don't rank them in any way. We don't read reviews. We definitely like address complaints. You know, if we have a quality installation checklist that they follow, and of course we ask them to follow local laws and everything. So if you have a bad experience, we definitely want to know about it. But you know, it doesn't necessarily, our list doesn't tell you if they're an awesome contractor or just an average contractor. So totally recommend using our list as well as online reviews like Yelp, Google reviews, and Better Business Bureau, which all have their own kind of pros and cons to those places. So that, and then also those manufacturer lists. So cross-referencing all those things will help you get a good picture. So a perfect way to find contractors, talking to people who have had heat pumps installed. If you had a great experience, share that with your friend. You know, with those. Just I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just saying if you had a great experience, this would be the time to share it. Not right now, but if anyone. but yeah. So you know, friends, relatives, if you know people who've installed them. There's also the Heat Smart campaigns across the state that have like local advocates, volunteer, it's all nonprofit, whatever. But they have like local people who have had heat pumps installed, and you can talk to them about their experience as well. So that's a great resource. If you go to like Heat Smart Energize, or it's not through Energize Connecticut, it's like through PACE, People's Action for Clean Energy. They have the Heat Smart campaigns. Yeah, it's a great place.
We are thinking about doing one here. We just had an election, and so the people necessary for it are changing over. So we might be doing one.
Cool. Well, then better people here to talk about it. Other resources, just want to point out finally. So if you go to energizeconnecticut.com/cleanheatcool, you have, this is toward the bottom of the page, a summary of like all the stuff. So there's like guides to the different equipment. So even more in depth than I went into tonight. You can learn more about those different types of equipment there. User tips. So like little like how to set it the best way to get the most efficiency out of the system. Schedule a consultation. We've got a heat pump checklist, which is like a nice list of like things you can walk through after the install to make sure the contractor did their due diligence. Like For example, one of the things on there is like, did they tape up the insulation on the refrigerant lines outside of the home? Like, those are things that they should do that we can kind of at least visually see, like, okay, they did this right, include it. Questions for your installer, highly recommend taking a look at that. That's like things to think about going into conversation with a contractor. Find a contractor tool so you can search our list to see who's available to use the rebates, and then there's also some like links to stuff outside of the website too. So that's all I've got, and I'd love to take any questions now. General questions about heat pumps, and again, I'd love to schedule more time in the future to talk about your home. So.
You said we can't ask questions.
Yeah. Just, if it's like, if it's about, you like, I'm in this scenario, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to do this, yeah.
Well, we have one in just one area, and that is allegedly a 4-season, although I think it's a 3-season, 3/4-season porch that we installed.
Porch, okay.
And we love it. However, I think it's very important to know, and it obviously is within your audit, okay?
Mhm.
Very important to take into consideration everything in the room. For example, ours, the window glass is not thermal. We didn't know that when it was installed. It was supposed to be. And so that does, take away
Yeah.
from the heating aspect of ours.
Right.
So something like that is a good reason to get an audit.
Absolutely. So 100%. So like, to your point, when a contractor's sizing heating equipment, or even thinking about the comfort of a room, right? Well, they're related, right? Obviously. It can get so in depth. There's what's called a heat load calculation to figure out how much heating any space. They could do a room by room analysis or the whole home, a heat load calculation, and all of those things go into that. So they take into account the glazing of the windows, which is how much thermal resistance the windows have. How well they're good at. And any windows can be way less than a wall, of course, but there are some windows that are way better than others. They take into account the volume of air, the height of the room. Are there, there's the floors, attics, walls. There's so much to do. How, the leakiness of the space. So they can get really in depth. Solar gain through the windows as well. The wind, how much wind, that drives some of the air leakage as well. So there's a lot to take into account. And to your point, those things are all very important. And the audit will tell you, like, here's how to prioritize. Maybe your windows are in the worst shape, and you should think about that first. But maybe your windows are okay, and maybe you should really think about attic insulation, because I'm not saying in your scenario,
Well,
I feel
no,
like,
no.
Totally, you probably should prioritize the windows.
Yeah,
But,
still,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, if there are other solutions, even in our case, we're sort of captive, but we would appreciate an audit because maybe we could do something short of replacing the windows.
yeah,
There might be something additionally we can do, and we would look forward to
yeah.
a review.
Yeah, and something that could be a solution is installing a ductless head in that space as well. Like, so that's a really common application for singles and ductless units, is like 3 or 4 season porches that.
And ours is Douglas.
Oh, you have one in
Oh, we
there.
have it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
2 years old. It's 3
Awesome.
years old.
Cool.
3
Oh,
years old.
you have a heat pump in there?
It's just for our porch.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So that's a really common app. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we love it.
But yeah, like not only is there like the windows lose more heat through like radiation, but you feel a lot colder being near windows because because the temperature of the surface of the window actually will pull more heat from you. The surface temperature of materials matters a lot as to how cold it makes you feel. And so colder surface of the windows really drives a lot of the comfort feeling, not only the air temperature, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
So a quick question about permitting and property tax implications.
Oh, cool.
I'm just curious, if you upgrade to a heat pump system, do you have to file for permits for that, and are there any property tax implications for the function of that?
Yeah, so anytime you're working with a refrigerant, which heat pumps use, you need to get a permit.
Okay.
HVAC professionals will do that for you. It's not really something you have to worry about. There are DIY heat pumps out there. You should get a permit. There's a homeowner's
Yeah,
permits.
I'm
You
not
should
in
definitely
this
get
program.
them
I'm
if you
not
were to sell the
considering-
house.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
people ask that all the time. So if anyone's there are DIY heat pumps that a reasonable handy person could install.
Okay.
They're not as high performing as some of the professionally installed ones, and you know, you don't get as good of a warranty, and there's pros and cons of DIY. But anyway, yeah, you should get a permit.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about the in terms of the value of their home. There's studies that are showing now that homeowners' purchases are valuing energy efficiency upgrades like this more and more so.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. Honestly, I'm not sure how it would impact your
I'm
taxes.
sure it's a town by town kind of,
Perhaps.
I don't know if we have some folks.
I don't think
Any
it would
No?
impact here, as far as any conversations we've had so far. That's never
I'm just
come up.
curious.
But yeah, that is a good question.
Don't like
We can
surprises.
certainly try to find out.
Any other questions, y'all?
Good question. So, we have one in a room, maybe split in a room, and it still has the baseboard heat with oil,
Okay.
in that room. And so, this winter, as it gets colder outside, is it more efficient or more cost efficient to like switch and not use, and switch to the other,
Mhm.
the oil heat source,
Yeah.
essentially for that room? And I guess maybe you don't know what that temperature is without knowing the exact like model.
Yeah.
And then, if that's the case, then, you know, are there, cool, thermostats that take into
Yeah.
consideration the outside temperature, and like, is that,
Yeah, you're first of all, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that like there is so for every system, based on we can, and this is where we can schedule a consultation. If we have the model numbers for the equipment, we can find the performance of the unit online. We can do an analysis where we compare that to like what you're paying for oil, and basically kind of give you an estimate of like when it, it's all modeling, so it's not like perfect on it, and oil prices change and everything, right? But it'll help you get an idea of where it might make sense to switch it over. Typically, the range is going to be between like 20 and 25 degrees is normal. But like we talked about earlier, some units don't even heat down to those cold temperatures, depending on. So I don't know
yeah.
how your heat pump, right? But
At that point, does it just turn off, or does it, like, is it bad for it if it gets that low and you're technically using your,
well,
You
your
don't turn it
your
off.
contractor probably when they installed it would have said like, hey, this isn't going to run under 32 degrees, so you need to like cover it over in the winter and all that. But so if you don't do that, it's probably fine. It might just not be like, so some units work in cold temperatures, but they lose a lot of their ability to produce heat. So they might do 48,000 BTUs at 47 degrees, and then down at 10 degrees they might only do 20,000 BTUs. So it might be that it works totally fine, but it just produces less heat, and you still might need the backup. So that's something we can look at again when we pull up the data on the equipment, and we can
okay.
tell you where it's more efficient, and if it's sized or has the capacity to do more heating and do all of your heating.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, and
Kind of research.
yeah, it's because it's like it like there's so many variables that go into it. It's like the efficiency of your oil system, and the efficiency of your heat pump, and then the efficiency of, or like the temperature, like how many hours you get at those cool temperatures, right? So it's there's a lot goes into it, and it's pretty specific. Even the data we showed up there is like it's averages over years, right? So it's and example hypothetical homes. So.
Okay, is that something, part of the information we can get, knowing the model of what we like purchased and everything?
Yeah, let's
And then
schedule.
also from like doing an energy audit?
Yeah, that would be more focused on the building envelope,
Okay,
as opposed to they don't really do much with the heating system. They might say if you had electric baseboard, they might say, hey, you should install a heat pump because it benefit you immensely.
yeah.
But yeah, they're focused on the envelope of the building, like keeping that whatever heating and cooling in the home, as opposed to producing it. Yeah. But let's schedule a consultation. We can definitely do that sort of analysis for you, or at least give you a good idea.
If you're considering doing ground-based coil systems, and when you get to the consultation portion of it, do you guys have access to like the geological construction, because I don't think anybody who's ever tried to put a garden in Woodbridge knows we grow rock. It's not-
Oh,
We
really?
have massive amounts of geological ledge that runs from West
Yeah.
Rock all the way down to the bottom of the Housatonic River.
Yeah.
And to put in ground base, even to go 8 feet down on a horizontal system, you could just run
Really?
vast amounts of ledge. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have access to any of that kind of data. Obviously, you pretty much want the whole state as to what
Yeah.
the geological lines are.
I don't personally, but I'll tell you how a geothermal contractor might think about this scenario. So one is if they've done a lot of projects in the area, they have maybe a fairly good sense of the geological conditions. But in most cases, the first so they would probably not want to do horizontal, maybe for that reason, right? And so you might be limited to vertical wells where they're drilling. Ledge is not a problem for drilling. It actually has a better heat exchange capacity than some other types of soil ground conditions. So it's not a problem for drilling. You might be limited to that type of ground design, but it's not a bad thing at all. When they drill, most of the time the first well is just the test well, and that's like sometimes there are this isn't really a thing much here, but I lived in Rochester, and sometimes they would hit like pockets of water, high pressure water systems underground, and there'd be like silt and water gushing out of it. So like there's challenges that come with the drilling, but in most cases it's not a huge obstacle, especially here. Follow-up questions to that?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
In terms of the energy efficiency, is it better to keep the heat pump on all the time or turn it off when you leave the home?
Yeah, good question. So it depends on the season, but if you're in its part of the year where you need heating or cooling all the time, usually it makes sense to leave it on. And so heat pumps are very, very efficient at maintaining a temperature. I mentioned earlier that they speed up and slow down. So when it gets a little bit hotter out, they'll just speed up and cool your home a little bit more. When it gets a little bit colder out in the winter, they'll speed up and produce a little bit more heating. So they don't do as well when you have huge temperature fluctuations. If you turn it up the temperature 5 degrees, the system's going to go into like overdrive mode and work as hard as it can to make that temperature adjustment. And so what we say with the heat pump is just set it and forget it. Like number one is to just leave it on, and it'll slow down to its lowest setting and just run and just maintain the temperature. And so it's not really working that hard. It'll actually use more energy if you were to turn it off and then it had to make a 5 or 10 degree adjustment. So ramping up to make that big adjustment costs more energy than just like leaving it to maintain the space in general. But like if it's the shoulder season and it's like 65 out and it's a beautiful day and you want to open the windows, turn the heat pump off and do that. So we're talking about like optimizing it, and you should still like behave normal way, so don't worry too much about it, but yeah.
Ours actually has a selection for automatic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I went to one of our lectures, and it's heaven. It
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
cool.
It makes its own decisions.
So when you say auto, you're talking about
Automatic.
switching between heating and cooling automatically, which is pretty cool. One thing about that I'll point out though, is that in the shoulder seasons, like when it might be warm enough in the day to need heating and cool enough at night to need, warm enough in the day to need cooling and cool enough at night to heat, you actually lose a little bit of efficiency by running an auto because it might heat up your home in the nighttime just to cool it back down in the daytime. So for maximum efficiency, we recommend just switching it from heating to cooling. But auto mode is awesome for conveniency and not having to worry about it. So different strokes for different folks, but yeah. I think you had a question back here?
Right, so if you have an oversized system, it's sized properly but for cooling, but now we're in the heating season and you have using kind of like a space heater almost. So are there charts out there or something to the manufacturers where you can find the information of how efficient it is to run, say, so we have a 4-head unit,
Mm-hmm.
12, 2 9s, and a 6,000.
Cool.
Say we just want to heat the 6,000 room, but
Yeah.
obviously we have a 3-ton unit outside.
Yeah.
Is there a way to like determine from somebody like how efficient it is or best use for that case?
So let me clarify your question. So you're asking, you have a multi-zone system outside, but you want to use it just for one small part of the home at one time. And you're asking if it makes more sense to use electric baseboard just for that area as opposed to running the whole system just for the small space. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, just running the small space heat pump, because it's only the 6,000 head in it.
Right.
From a 310 unit.
So you don't want to run the whole system just for that small room.
Or, yeah, basically, so efficiency is pretty low at that point, I assume.
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. So most of the time, there is a minimum output of the system as well. So heat pumps have maximum BTU outputs, but they also have minimums. So if you were to just want to heat in that 6,000 BTU room, you'd still, it would still be heating and cooling more than just that. It couldn't just go down to 6,000 BTUs most times. So 3-ton systems, most often, a good minimum capacity would be between 5 and 10,000 probably, right? So
Well, the other heads are off, say, the other heads are
I'm not sure, you'd have to follow the manufacturer's guidance on have you run it that way before?
Yeah.
And it works fine?
No, it doesn't work that well.
Well, because if you think about it, so the outdoor unit is one size, right? So that's going to be running at its very lowest setting. It basically can't modulate because, when I say modulate, I mean speed up and slow down. It can't do that because you're limited on the inside with only 6,000 BTUs. So if its lowest setting is at 8,000 BTUs, then it's actually, I'm not even sure the engineering backs, some things wouldn't work properly. I'm not really sure, but there probably is guidance from the manufacturer on in that case for that combination, if
We've
you
had trouble with that one room even in the summer when all 4 units or 3 units are operating, just to get a consistent temp. I don't know if the space is just too small for the heat pump to get it.
Yeah, let's talk more about it in a consultation because, I don't know if you take a look at had an energy assessment, and perhaps there's that room is lacking insulation on one of the walls or in the ceiling, or the insulation has fallen down and it's not performing as well as it used to, and that could lead to those types of issues where you have more heat loss in that room than was originally designed for. But yeah, I mean, we could also troubleshoot, I think that the next step would be figuring out what the manufacturer is, what the brand model is. We could pull up the specs of the equipment. We could even bring in, someone manufacturer's representative to see what they recommend for these scenarios as well. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Anything else, y'all? Great questions, by the way. I really appreciate it. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks so much.